Hey geeks and gamers, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to take a look at an awesome mini PC capable of 1080p gaming in medium to high settings. It's in this tiny little box and it features an i9 CPU with a 1650 GTX, all in this small package. And believe me, it's even smaller and tighter on the inside. You will like it. Okay, roll the intro. Alright, let us quickly go over the specs of this awesome mini PC. It features an i9-8950HK CPU. This is a 6-core, 12-thread CPU with a max turbo frequency of 4.8 GHz. The GPU is an NVIDIA GTX 1650 with 4 GB of VRAM. We have 16 GB of DDR4 RAM and a 240 GB M.2 SSD. As the mini PC consists mainly of notebook parts, as we will see when we take it apart, it also features built-in Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. All this comes in a really tiny package. The dimensions of the mini PC are as follows: 22 centimeters in length, only 19.5 centimeters in width, and the height is only 4 centimeters. So as you can see, it's really small. This PC is available as a barebone or pre-configured as I bought it. With the features listed on the left side, I only paid 650 euros and I got it shipped from Europe also. It's available on Banggood or AliExpress, and yeah, don't forget to consider that you might have to pay import taxes or other things if you get it from China. There are also different versions available, like one with an i5 CPU or an i7 9th gen CPU. But I went with the i9 8th gen cause the max turbo frequency of 4.8 GHz is higher than the one on the i7. Okay, now it's time to take a closer look at the mini PC and take it apart, I guess. The case of the mini PC features an all gray metal and carbon fiber style with red accents. It's really well built and of high quality. The Z on the top will light up like red on the edges when it's turned on, which is awesome. Okay, the front. There's not much to see here. There is only the power button. Okay, sleek design. Alright, let's turn it around and take a look at the rear I/O. At the back of the mini PC we have a headphone jack, a gigabit Ethernet port, 4 USB 3 ports, 2 USB 2 ports, an HDMI and DisplayPort out, and a USB-C connector, which unfortunately is not Thunderbolt. And last but not least, the connection for the power brick. There you have it. Okay, let's flip it around and take a look at the inside. In order to open up the mini PC, all you have to do is remove those 4 tiny screws and crank open the back. Fast forward. Okay, on the left side we've got the M.2 drive. Under it is the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi module. There's the RAM, and for the cooling we have a laptop solution, 2 fans with copper heat pipes, like it's 3 of them. Yes, 3 copper heat pipes, and that is a fairly small thermal solution, to be honest, for such a powerful machine, but we'll see how good it will do. So in order to be able to test PC systems in a consistent way, I came up with my own testing methodology, which consists of Cinebench R23, certain games, and then some 3D Mark. And after running 3D Mark, I noticed that I fucked it up. The results I got were not on par with what I saw on the internet. The machine got higher scores there from different people and sources, so something was wrong, right? And digging into it, I figured out my machine came with a single 16 GB RAM module, so no dual channel RAM configuration. But that was easy to fix. I just had 2 8 GB SODIMM modules lying around and installed those. Digging deeper, I found out that the default TDP limits for the CPU were around 45 watts. As this is an unlocked K variant, most people raised the TDP limits and time limits for the boosts and therefore got much better results. So it was my turn to crank up the Intel Extreme tuning utility and dial in some higher numbers while trying to maintain a stable system. So here you can see my tuning settings directly in the tool. I raised the Turbo Boost power max to 85 watts and the short power max to even 90 watts. I've set the Turbo Boost power time to a whopping 128 seconds. As the CPU got quite toasty that way, I decided to undervolt it. My final stable undervolt was at minus 110 millivolts. While at it, I cranked up MSI Afterburner and tuned the graphics card. I raised the core clock by 125 MHz and the memory clock by 550 MHz. Both for the CPU and the GPU, higher values were possible, but I wanted the system to be super stable. If one benchmark failed, I started all over again tuning the settings until I got an all-stable system. I guess you want to see some results now, right? Let's go. So I had to rerun all the tests again just for you guys. So please follow and subscribe. It was a mess and I've only done it for you. Please appreciate it. Okay, so here are the final benchmark results. I will always show the results for the unmodified out-of-the-box performance of the mini PC alongside the results for the tuned configuration. We will start with 3D Mark and then go through the 10 games, followed by Cinebench R23. As you can see, our graphics score in 3D Mark went up by 8% from 3,409 points to 3,692 points, while the CPU score went up a whopping 20%. A total combined score, however that is calculated, is up by 10%. That is a nice performance uplift, isn't it? But what about games? Let's start with Shadow of the Tomb Raider. If you want to read all the charts in detail and undisturbed, just pause the video. I will only go through the important or exciting stuff. Shadow of the Tomb Raider is still a hard to run title at the highest settings, and our mini PC averages out at 50 FPS in the tuned configuration. For a single player title, this is more than enough. I would play this game at the highest preset all day long on this machine. From highest to the medium preset, the uplift in average FPS compared to the untuned configuration is almost always exactly 10%. However, for the low preset, the uplift in FPS is a whopping 15%. Interesting. Perhaps the GPU is not bottlenecking as hard anymore as with the other presets, and the uplift in CPU performance allows for a higher score here. Next up is The Division 2. While the Ultra preset is a bit too much for our little gaming machine, the high or medium presets seem to be perfect. The performance uplift due to the tuning of the CPU and GPU overclock is once again roughly 10%, with the exception of the low preset, again. Here we have a 16% uplift in FPS. I guess my theory of the bottlenecking GPU might be right. This PC sure has potential and I wish I could get it with a more powerful GPU. Time for Assassin's Creed Odyssey. One of the badly optimized titles, but we still have to take what we can get. It seems the ultra and very high presets are too much for the GPU in this case. The high preset seems to be the sweet spot for this single player title. Interestingly, the uplift in performance from the tuned configuration is always roughly 9%, no matter the quality preset. The low preset did not give us any extra boost this time. F1 2020 is a well-optimized title and known to even run on a potato. With the 1650 and the i9 CPU, we can easily use the Ultra preset and get away with FPS numbers above 60 all day long. Interestingly enough, the performance uplift is almost exactly 10%, no matter the quality preset throughout this chart. Next up is Far Cry New Dawn. Our little gaming PC can handle this title at the Ultra preset while maintaining an average above 60 FPS, at least with the tuned configuration. Far Cry seems to not only benefit from the GPU overclock but also the CPU boost. All presets except the low quality setting benefit from an average 13% performance uplift. The FPS numbers for the low preset are even increased by almost 17% with the tuned configuration. Nice and interesting how different titles react to CPU and or GPU overclocking/tuning. Welcome to Hitman 3. It has two built-in benchmarks, Dartmoor and Dubai. Let's start with Dartmoor. If you're a fan of the Hitman series, good news! This PC can run the game at the high preset without problems. The Dartmoor benchmark receives a 10% uplift, no matter the preset, when comparing the stock configuration to the tuned one. Nice. But what about Dubai? No worries, the high preset is no problem for this PC. With more agents and AI stuff going on in this benchmark, and therefore benefiting more from the CPU tuning, we receive an average uplift of 12% in performance with a tuned configuration. Awesome! Next up is Metro Exodus. This benchmark is much harder to run than the game itself, pushing some limits. So I was not really surprised to see an average of only 30 FPS in the Ultra preset. I would recommend the high preset, as this game normally runs smoother than the benchmark itself, and it is a single player title and not some kind of competitive shooter where each single FPS counts. The performance uplift due to the tuned configuration is roughly 9% on average. So not much to see here. Let's move on to Red Dead Redemption 2. I chose a balanced preset which left the slider dead center between performance and quality. I think it is even the default when you just installed the game anyway. As I only had one quality preset, I decided to also show the max and min FPS in order to see if they also benefited from the tuned configuration. And yeah, they do, at least the minimum FPS. It went up from 27 to 32 FPS, that is a whooping 18.5%. The max FPS stayed at 65 FPS, which is totally fine. The average FPS went up from 38 to 48 FPS, that is another 13% more. This game benefited a lot from the tuning. With above 30 FPS even for the min values, I would play this balanced preset all day long. Remember, it is a single player title and I love visually good graphics, so I would not turn it down for more FPS. Next up is Wolfenstein Youngblood. One of the best optimized games I know, so let's make it short. Even at the high preset, we are always around 100 FPS. I did not try higher presets as the 1650 only comes with 4 GB of VRAM. Just crank in the high preset and enjoy the game. The performance uplift from the tuning is exactly around 10% no matter the preset or level. Last but not least, the hardest to run title, which is really brutal on the hardware, Cyberpunk 2077. The Ultra preset really kills this machine. We are out of VRAM and the GPU cannot keep up by any means. Also, the high preset is still too much. With the medium preset we are good. Just lock the frame rate in the options to 30 FPS and you will have a good time in the game while still having nice visuals. If you really need more, just dial in the low preset. It is still very impressive that this tiny PC with a mobile CPU and GPU can run this title. The performance uplift from the tuning is 10% for the Ultra preset and a nice 12% on the medium preset. The low preset almost gains 15%. As the final benchmark, we have Cinebench R23. In its stock configuration, this PC delivers a multi-score of 5,576 points. It is okay. I went a bit over the top while tuning the PC, especially for this benchmark. While my to-go undervolt was minus 110 millivolts, I went for minus 140 millivolts for Cinebench, and here is the result. Yes, that is correct, your eyes are not broken. Yes, the score went up to a whooping 7,266 points. That is a performance increase by 30%. Let us draw a conclusion and take all this into consideration. Conclusion time, and it is a two-sided sword. This awesome mini PC comes at a price tag of 650 euros, at least in the configuration I bought, peripherals and rubber ducks not included. Unfortunately, it came with a single stick of RAM and the M.2 drive was just a plain SATA SSD, not a NVMe drive. I would recommend buying the barebone version and getting the RAM and drive from somewhere else. Performance-wise, the PC has great potential but needs a better cooling to show it. As we saw with the Cinebench, if we manage to keep the CPU cooler, in my case by undervolting it, it can perform even better. I mean, a 30% uplift is Wow, just wow. Another big limiting factor is the GTX 1650 GPU. It cannot be swapped out, and the GPU and CPU are sharing one cooling solution, which adds to the heat buildup. Another bummer is the USB-C port at the back of the PC, as it is just a USB-C port. Although it has a little flash or lightning symbol, next to it is not a Thunderbolt port. I tried to connect an external GPU in a Razer enclosure via Thunderbolt, and nothing happened. The symbol seems to only imply that you can charge stuff via that port. Damn it. Yes, in the stock configuration the PC is okay, but by tuning it via the Intel utility and overclocking the GPU it became kind of better. So if you need a super tiny PC to put in the living room as a console clone or a PC for esports titles, this one is great, as long as you stick to 1080p gaming. If you need a serious workstation or want to play AAA titles at ultra settings or anything above 1080p, this is the wrong PC for you. Okay friends, thanks for watching. Please consider to follow me on YouTube and to follow and subscribe to me on Twitch. The links are in the video description below. Stay safe and see you next time. Alpha, over and out.